Looking at the dragon in front of her, Shiro narrowed her eyes. Dragons have one of the strongest vitalities in the world, just second to demons, especially someone like Madison. For her to heal him to death, she had to find a way to force the dragon to tap into this vitality, which wasn't easy. After all, their natural healing was already tremendous. When tapping into a person's vitality, they need a catalyst to stimulate this change, something that forces them beyond their limits. A berserk skill would be classified as such as it taps into a person's vitality, unleashing power beyond their normal limits. Shiro's act of stacking berserker skills can be called suicidal, if not for her tenacity and ridiculous vitality. And even then, she was near death the moment the skills wore off. While healing the dragon, Shiro wondered how to forcefully make them enter a berserk state so that they continuously drain their life force away. Thinking about it, Shiro realized that error was probably the best way for her to accomplish this. With error, she'll be able to tap into their source code and possibly activate their skills through brute force. Curling her lips into a grin, Shiro couldn't retrain the laughter within. PFT haha. Dragon oh dragon, you have no idea what I'm about to do to you. Are you curious? Why am I healing you? Fufufu, who knows, except me, don't look so afraid now. It's only a little bit of healing. Don't tell me you're afraid of a small woman like me. I'm barely the size of your arm. Come, let me nurse you back to full health. Shiro grinned as both Nine and Iris shivered, seeing Shiro laughing maniacally. Do you think she's got a screw loose? Nine whispered as Iris furrowed her brows. Her mana doesn't suggest that. It seems like she's just saying what she's thinking out loud. Iris replied, frowning slightly. Nine looked at Shiro, who jumped off the building and landed on the dragon's head, raising her right arm. It turned black as red circuits appeared from her fingertips. New novel chapters are published on lightnovelpub.com. Let's give this a try, shall we? I'll make sure it's painless for you. Shiro shouted out as she slammed her hand down. Asterisk bang. Red circuits exploded out from her hand as it wrapped around the dragon's body. Since Shiro was familiar with controlling Air's main body, controlling extensions was an easy task for her. Suddenly, the whites of her right eye shifted to black as red circuits could now be seen in her eye and the area around it. It was similar to a tattoo that flickered with an ominous light. Instantly discovering the dragon's code, her eyes scanned everything in a moment and discovered what she wanted to find. While she may not be able to remember everything with a single glance like before, all she needed to do was find certain sections of the code. Everything else could be ignored. With her target in sight, Shiro adjusted her grip and funneled mana through her arm. All of the circuits started to glow as they embedded themselves into the dragon's flesh. Meanwhile, Nine couldn't believe his eyes. In front of him, the dragon's level started to increase, while there was a new status effect next to his name. Juvenile Void Dragon LVL 830 Berserk State. As the level continued to rise, the name tag also changed. Ancient Void Dragon LVL 980 Berserk State. With each passing moment, the dragon's physique started to grow as its muscles bulged. Runic patterns appeared on his scales as gray hairs could be seen. Despite the growth in power, the dragon was panicking. Ancient Void Dragon LVL 999 Berserk State. Continuing to funnel mana into the dragon, Shiro noticed that it wasn't reaching level 1000. The most up-to-date novels are published on lightnovelpub.com. What's wrong? Can't reach level 1000? Well, I suppose to do so would be equal to getting a divinity. Unfortunately, you're just tapping into your life force to grow and level. But I wonder what would happen if I give you one last push. Shiro narrowed her eyes as the dragon widened his eyes. As the last pulse of mana entered his body, the skies started to change. The clouds parted to reveal the sunset that was now being washed over by an all-consuming light, descending onto the dragon's body. Jumping off, Shiro watched as the dragon cry out to the skies before slowly losing color. Its scales started to fall off one by one as its body crumbled to ash. Once the last bit of the dragon scattered away, the skies returned to normal. Looking at the remains, Shiro frowned. During the process, she felt more destructive energy than creation. If she was to use this to cultivate her class, then it'll be no different from her destruction divinity. Clicking her tongue, Shiro pouted and kicked some debris away, causing it to smash through a building. Sensing that Iris and Nine was approaching her, Shiro turned towards the duo. Thank you for saving us. We owe our lives to you. Nine bowed as Iris did the same. It's fine. It was just coincidence. If I didn't follow the dragon, I wouldn't have found you. It's not safe near cities. Was there any reason for you to be in London? Shiro asked as Nine looked at Iris. We weren't meant to be here, but we teleported after being chased down by an unfriendly group of survivors. Thankfully, they didn't teleport to London, so me and Iris spent a few days here to recuperate. We were planning on leaving today, but the monsters started to act strange. As for the rest, you know since you saved us. 9 smiled, however he had a few doubts in his heart. Both him and Iris have a special passive that allows the two of them to avoid detection. But that's only against monsters and demi-humans that are classified as such. An example being Demon. If Shiro couldn't detect the two of them, then that means she was either a monster or something akin to a demon. Seeing her power firsthand, 9 understood that regardless of what she was, if she wanted to kill them, she would. It's as easy as flicking a finger. Do you have anywhere to go after this? I do have a place that you can go to, but it's pretty far from here. Shiro asked as 9 shook his head. This content is taken from lightnovelpub.com. We were planning to wander around and rest wherever we can. Well, you should find a place soon since the world is going to change again. First, it's monsters becoming common. Next is gods descending. Quite a few of them are rather hostile, and if you don't bow down to the first one you see, you might die. Shiro shrugged as 9 paused in surprise at the information. Seeing the seriousness in Shiro's eyes, 9 knew that she wasn't joking. I see. Before he could continue his sentence, Iris tugged on his shirt and walked toward Shiro. Miss, if you don't mind, would it be okay for us to follow you for a short while? Until we find a place to stay? Iris asked as Shiro raised an eyebrow. I mean, sure, you can tag along, but the places I'm going to and the enemies I face will be dangerous. I can send you to the safe place right now if you want. Shiro offered, but Iris shook her head. It'll be an enlightening experience to travel with you. Iris smiled as Shiro nodded. Well, in that case, then I suppose our first task is to leave this place. I doubt I can find what I want to find here. Unless you two have something you need to do, we should be able to leave through this path. Shiro said as Iris shook her head. There's nothing else for us to do in this city. If you follow this tunnel, you'll reach the highways out to the fields. There are high-level monsters roaming around, but with the power you demonstrated, I'm sure you'll be fine. Iris smiled as Shiro nodded her head and glanced towards the tunnel. Since your friend here wants to have a word with you privately, I'll wait by the entrance. Just give me a shout when you are ready to leave. Shiro shrugged as Iris nodded her head. Watching Shiro leave, 9 turned to Iris. I know what you want to ask, and this is something we must do. If we don't, there are dire consequences. Iris said as she manifested a Tier 5 magic circle. Recognizing it to be the divination tool that Iris uses to determine some of their choices, 9 raised his eyebrows curiously. If we stay with the young lady, our fortune will be good. The path will be difficult, but it will bring good fortune. But if we are to part ways here and now, the mirror shows nothing. Our path will end. Even if we are to go to the place she mentioned, the dead end doesn't change. Iris explained as 9 frowned. Updated from lightnovelpub.com. But that's not all. It's not just us who reach a dead end. From the response of the mirror, if we don't follow her, a lot of people will die. Iris shook her head. Who is she to affect so many lives? 9 thought in his mind while glancing over at Shiro, who was waiting by the tunnel, freezing and killing any monsters that approach. After 9 and Iris finished conversing with one another, they made their way to Shiro. Seeing the pair approach, Shiro gave a small wave. Let's set off then. While I'm not afraid of the monsters, I'm more concerned about wasting time. Is there anywhere you two would like to go? If not, I'll be wandering, so a few locations of interest. Shiro said as the two of them shook their heads. We don't have anywhere we need to go other than a place to stay for now. That and also to escape our pursuers, but we've accomplished that. If anything, I'm more interested in what your plans are. 9 smiled as Shiro thought about it for a moment. Well, I'm looking for a way to solve a small problem of mine. That, and to level up. As you can see, my level is stuck at 1. Shiro smiled, pointing above her since that's where her name tag would be. I figured. After all, a level 1 medic wouldn't let you kill a dragon in such a manner. 9 said as his smile twitched from remembering what just happened. While he wasn't verbal about it, the sight of her boosting a dragon to level 999 was fresh in his mind. That's true. If you don't mind me asking, what's up with your friend's bandage? If she has any impairment to sight, I'm pretty sure most medics would be able to fix it. Those that keep glasses just like the look. Shiro asked curiously. Before 9 could say anything, Iris spoke up. It's a small condition that I had for a while now. My eyes are overly sensitive to the changes in mana and light. When I take my bandages off, my eyes are constantly assaulted until they pop. These bandages serve as a barrier of sorts. Iris smiled as Shiro blinked her eyes. Hearing how Iris could nonchalantly talk about her eyeballs popping from prolonged exposure, Shiro couldn't help but give her praise. It's not every day that you can find someone as nonchalant as her when it came to talking about damage to one's own body. I see. Well, I can tell that your mana senses are spot on. If you want, I can help you change this little impairment of yours. Make it so that you can see through your eyes like everyone else would. Plus, you'll keep your sharp senses. Shiro offered as Iris thought about it, but shook her head. For more, visit lightnovelpub.com. It is fine. After staying this way for a long while, I've come to terms with it. Plus, it helps me in some aspects when it comes to my own class. But thank you for your offer. Iris bowed slightly as Shiro nodded her head. The offer is always open if you ever change your mind. Shiro shrugged while making her way through the tunnel. Pressing her hand against the walls, a powerful well of mana surged from her body as her senses scanned the entire path. All of the monsters, hidden and out in the open, could be seen by her. Grinning sadistically, ice started to appear on the walls as the temperature dropped. Don't mind me. I'm just clearing the way a little so that we're not interrupted in our chats. Shiro reassured as her mind focused on the distant monsters. On her palm, a Tier 6 magic circle appeared as Shiro chuckled. Suddenly, both Nine and Iris could hear howls of pain that originated from deep within monsters' souls echoing through the tunnel. Even though he could not see what happened, Nine couldn't help but feel pity just from the pain he could sense from the scream. Curious as to what happened, Nine glanced at Iris, who was speechless at what she just sensed. Seeing this, Nine knew that it was something particular. Don't ask. You'll see it in a while. Iris shook her head, refusing to speak further as her cheeks blushed from embarrassment. However, there was also a trace of pity and fear. Furrowing his brows, Nine nodded his head and continued to venture deeper into the tunnel. For more, visit lightnovelpub.com. After a short while, he could tell why Iris didn't want to say anything. Pierced from the rear and suspended into the air, the monsters were locked in place, whimpering from the pain and couldn't do anything but wait until their health slowly drained away like the blood from the back. Some didn't even want to move in case it made things worse, while other monsters would rather end their own life than to suffer a slow, painful death filled with humiliation. Oh, these ones actually persisted for so long despite me drilling their ass. They got some tenacity, Shiro commented while nodding her head in appreciation. Choking on his saliva, Nine remembered a certain legend before the world was turned to a hellscape. A weird girl with a weird fetish, hair white as snow, beautiful like the sight of diamond dust in the snowy Alps, and a fetish that couldn't be matched. If you don't mind me asking, does Miss happen to know something about a certain type of plate that is usually placed on the rear? Nine asked with a forced smile. Yeah, I do. If I remember correctly, Helion made it after people saw me pierce asses for the first time. He mentioned that he made quite a bit of money from the sales. It has been a while since I last heard of them. Why do you ask? Shiro tilted her head as Nine shrugged his shoulders. It's just that I was reminded of a few rumors that I had heard before my current journey and was curious if you were the one in the rumors. Hearing the girl in front of him talk about something as profane as piercing asses without care or embarrassment was rather peculiar. Even Iris was embarrassed by the talk and chose to keep quiet. What kind of rumors? I hope they're good ones. Shiro asked with an enthusiastic light in her eyes. Depends on what you mean by good. Nine retreated a step as Shiro raised her eyebrows as if the answer was obvious. Of course it's good if they spread the word of a prime weak spot. It'll boost survival rates if people acknowledge the weak point and strike at it without fear. I know it's a daunting task, but I guarantee it works. It's just a shame that they're too embarrassed to use it. Who knows how many lives it'll save if you live without shame. Shiro sighed heavily and shook her head with pity. Hearing this, Nine was about to cough up blood. Visit lightnovelpub.com for a better experience. She truly lives up to her name. He thought to himself as he put the monsters out of their misery. Even though they were supposed to be enemies, not even he wanted such a fate for his adversaries. May you rest in peace. He prayed earnestly and hoped the shame wouldn't follow them to the afterlife. Upon leaving the tunnel, Shiro breathed the fresh air and stretched her body. We're finally out of the city. Nine sighed as he also stretched his body. Nodding her head in agreement, Iris smiled. Miss Shiro, if you don't mind me asking, what problem are you trying to solve, and where do you plan on going? Iris asked curiously as Shiro glanced towards her. Well, I'm trying to find a way to obtain creation magic so that my class can level up. Only problem is that I'm not exactly clear on the prospects of creation magic, so it's going to be a bit tough. Shiro shrugged since it didn't really matter to her if they knew she was trying to get creation magic. Creation magic? You mean similar to how you would summon something from absolutely nothing? creating souls and people alike, new universes, and so on? Iris asked after a short pause. Something along those lines. But it's more than that. Think of me trying to get something that's the pure essence of creation. In the beginning, there was chaos. From chaos, both creation and destruction appeared. I want to find a way to cultivate that power of creation. Shiro smiled, understanding that this sounds ridiculous to other people. After all, becoming God was already inconceivable to these people, never mind mastering the power of creation. Plus, creation wasn't that simple. If it was, it wouldn't be able to contend against her power of destruction. Her power of destruction was something so primal and so violent that it consumed anything it touched. For the power of creation to stand a chance, it had to be just as powerful in order for the two to reach an equilibrium. And only when that is achieved can true peace be found within the center of this. The balance of two sides, neither one overtaking the other. I see. You set out on a hard path. The stars speak not of your fortune, but your determination. It cannot predict your path, but your passion burns bright within the cosmos. The stars may hold finite wisdom, but your will transcends the very stars themselves. As the enchanter of stars, I hope that your path may be illuminated by the astral will. Iris smiled as a strange power welled up from within her body. Follow current novels on lightnovelpub.com. Sensing this power, Shiro was unsure of what just transpired, but nodded her head regardless. She could sense that Iris was being sincere. Little did she know, the stars were beginning to shift in the night sky. Right then, my destination right now is the old guild house belonging to Lumia's blessing. If my information is correct, it should be roughly half a day's journey away from the center of London. Shiro smiled as Nine perked his ears up. The guild should be the one with the healer hero, right? Nine asked as Shiro nodded her head. Yep, since I'm planning on learning how to become a healer to harness the powers of creation, I figured that their headquarters would have quite a bit of information on healing. I might be able to get some inspiration if I was to go. Shiro replied as Nine nodded his head. However, there was a frown on his face. If you're looking for something there, then you might be disappointed. From what I've heard a short while ago, it seems like some of the people who have defected to the Queen's side have exposed information on all of the important places. Headquarters are no exception since they hold plenty of information, equipment, and items that are helpful to the Queens. There might not be anything left there. Nine shook his head as Shiro raised her eyebrows. That is a problem. Don't worry about it, though. I also have my own ideas when we get there. But first, how do you feel about a unique mode of transport? This might not be as fast as I like since it's something I made a while ago, but it'll suit our needs. Shiro smiled as she pulled out an orb from her inventory, throwing it towards some empty space. Nanobots appeared and transformed into a jet. With this, we should be able to reach our destination in roughly a minute or so. It'll save us the travel time, Shiro explained while hopping into the pilot's seat. Blinking his eyes in surprise and awe, Nine examined the jet. Does this jet teleport through space? If it can, then it'll definitely shorten the journey. Well, it's something of the sort. Shiro smiled mysteriously as Nine turned to Iris, who was already climbing into the jet. Shrugging his shoulders, he strapped himself in as well and got comfortable. Visit lightnovelpub.com for the best novel reading experience. Right then, since it's your first time, I'll go a little slower. Shiro chuckled. Before Nine could even finish thanking Shiro, she launched the jet, blasting through the skies as rings of air exploded behind them. Crying out in shock, Nine was completely pushed into his seat, while Iris was almost in the same situation. It seems like there was a barrier around her that helped her adapt, while Nine was subjected to the full force. As he finished shouting, Nine realized they were now just outside of the headquarters. As Shiro had promised, they arrived in roughly a minute. Without saying anything else, Shiro hopped out of the jet and looked at the building in front of her. The building was suspended above a ravine with pillars of support everywhere she looked. In the middle was a large building with an almost alien-like design compared to the buildings in London. Marbled surfaces with golden edges and neon green highlights, filled with mana. Despite being broken to pieces and toppled, the tower managed to retain some of its impressiveness during its prime. Waving her hand, Shiro scanned the building for any monsters and took care of them quickly so that they don't waste her time. Flexing her finger, a hole appeared on the building, allowing her entry. Since the building was toppled, she was essentially walking on the walls. Picking up a few of the books, Shiro waved her hand and started to organize the rest while looking through the pages. Just as Nine was about to say something, he could see that her focus was entirely on the book. Her eyes seemed almost desperate, which came as a slight surprise. He figured that he probably shouldn't interrupt her right now and explored the rest of the building with Iris. Visit lightnovel.com for the best novel reading experience. Unfortunately, it was as he expected. Rest of the building had nothing of value. Not even a spare potion, as everything was looted. The only things left were some old data chips and books that were deemed useless to the scavengers. Noticing that Iris was distracted by the side, 9 walked over. I was surprised to sense a star chart. I didn't think that there were healers in this guild that also used the power of stars to buff and heal. Compared to my own star chart, this one is more complete. Though the problem is that it's a little too big, I won't be able to carry it around. Iris smiled, while pulling out a few cards and charms that had pieces of her star chart etched into them. These were also the mediums that Iris used to cast her spells. With a more complete star chart, her spells would be more powerful, but the problem was that there was simply too much for her to store away. The sheer size of this star chart encompassed 3 whole floors that were connected by a spiral staircase in the middle. This allowed them to view the star chart from any angle, but that was only when the tower was straight. Now that it has been toppled, they viewed it from the side. With how much space this star chart covered, Iris would be lucky to even find a few cards worth of decent upgrades to her current arsenal. To make it worse, she didn't know which ones were actually useful for her. She would need more time to study the star chart if she wished to know. However, due to her sensitivity to mana, she could tell that a few were minutely more powerful than the others and decided to record them into her cards for now and study them later. She didn't know how long Shiro was going to stay, so she gathered everything with the intention of leaving immediately if needed. Seeing that she was adding more cards to her arsenal, 9 helped out. You know that using the blessing only shaved off more of your life, right? 9 said as Iris was silent. You may be the enchanter of stars, but there is still a limit to your strength. Using so much of your own fortune and life force to boost her fortune is a little extreme, wouldn't you say? 9 asked, but Iris chuckled. I knew the risks and blessed her since our fates are definitely connected. Little did I know that her fate was rather volatile. Once I had blessed her, my own fate started to change. That is the same for my fortune. 9. If anything, I was the one who benefited from blessing her. Iris admitted as she placed her finger on the bandages over her eyes. Just as she was about to slide her finger underneath to touch her eyes, a seal appeared and deflected her finger. Shaking her head with a smile, she continued to add cards to her arsenal. Hearing this, 9 glanced towards the office where Shiro was at right now. Eventually, he looked away and focused on helping Iris. Meanwhile, Shiro was growing more and more annoyed. Visit lightnovel.com for the best novel reading experience. All of the content in the books were stuff that she already knew, and nothing she searched was of value. All common, not a single bit of rare knowledge. TCH, all of the good stuff has been taken. I wonder which queen robbed this place. Perhaps I kill her and take her stuff. Shiro muttered as her eyes radiated with an ominous lust for blood. However, she quickly snapped herself out of it and slapped her own head. What am I thinking about? If the queens form an alliance, there will be no need for me to kill. Plus, I can't keep killing things if I want to cultivate creation. Stop being a murder machine, Shiro, you dummy. Shiro pouted as she lectured herself. Sighing heavily, she tossed the book behind her and looked around the room. Tapping her finger against the walls, a thin blue mist started to spread through the room, eventually latching onto a few mana signatures that had rummaged through the piles of books before. Tugging on the threads that were now connected to these signatures, Shiro could tell that they were all going the same direction. Seeing this, she guessed that they were the ones who worked under the queen that ordered for this place to be looted. I'll go pay them a visit. Hopefully I can add her as a friend in the alliance. If not, it's better to kill her to get rid of any problems. She might not be a danger to me, but she might be annoying left alive and bring about unforeseen consequences. Shiro thought to herself and walked towards Iris and 9. Iris, 9, we're changing locations. I'm going to pay the queen that looted this place a visit to see if I can get some of the data back. Is there anything you want from this place before we leave? Shiro asked. Before Iris could reply, 9 opened his mouth. Yes, Iris requires the star chart to improve her spells. She is unable to take everything here, which is a shame. So if you have any methods that can help, it'll be greatly appreciated. 9 said as Shiro nodded her head. Visit lightnovel.com for the best novel reading experience. Looking at the star chart, Shiro narrowed her eyes. Flexing her finger, the room was sent into the void while metal sewed the tower back together. Watching Shiro rip parts of the tower off and jam it into the void while Metal repaired the tower to stop them from falling, 9 was speechless. From what I last remember, she should be rather low level a little more than a year ago. Did she spend all of her time in the dungeon to get to this level? That shouldn't be the case since she would look a lot older. Then she probably just kept killing things to get to this stage. 9 thought to himself. Since both he and Iris were locked away for a while, they didn't know too much information about the outside world. Only little rumors since they traveled with a small group that talked about Shiro. I've sent the star chart into the void. If you want to see it, just tell me and I'll open a portal. If I wasn't trying to obtain creation, then I could probably shrink the room down into a projection globe that's an upgraded version of your cards. Shiro shrugged as Iris nodded her head. Thank you very much. Being able to obtain this is already a boon. Iris smiled. It's fine. It's not like I need it anyway. Anything you require, just tell me and I'll retrieve it for you. But setting that aside, we're going to go on a small detour. I want to talk to the queen that ransacked this place and see if we can come to an agreement. Shiro smiled as Iris and 9 paused. Are you sure? The queens are quite hostile. I doubt they'll be as kind as to give you what you want. 9 reminded as Shiro waved her hand. It's fine. I got a small reputation amongst them. You don't need to worry. Shiro smiled as 9 looked at Iris before nodding his head. Plus, if I'll protect the two of you, you have my word for that, she reassured, before making her way out of the tower. Looking at Shiro's back, 9 hesitated since they were still going to the headquarters of a queen. That's suicidal in his books. However, remembering that she forcefully leveled a dragon up to level 999 and killed it, 9 figured that she had everything under control. Let's not fall behind. Our fate is already tangled with hers. Iris smiled as she walked out of the tower while 9 followed behind her. Summoning the jet, Shiro smiled and wordlessly gestured to the seats. Seeing this, 9 paled but resigned to his fate. In the distance, monsters could hear a sudden scream before it was too far to be heard. Visit lightnovel.com for the best novel reading experience. ####. Reducing her speed slightly, Shiro glanced at the radar that was synced to the threads that she had linked to the queen. Seeing that she was across the sea, Shiro wondered what kind of queen this was going to be. Depending on what happens, she might have to ditch the idea and escape to the void, but if it was someone troublesome, she'll try to kill them regardless of what happens. Glancing out of the window, she could see schools of giant fish monsters that would jump out of the water before swimming back down to the depths. Compared to what it was like before the New Age, the sea has become a no-man's land. All of the underwater dungeons have broken and the monsters within have been released. Glancing at Shiro, who seemed a little concerned about what's in the water, 9 glanced down and shuddered. Seems like she's worried about the water monsters. 9 thought to himself. Little did he know, that was not the case at all. I wonder if their flesh is rubbery or tough. Hopefully it's on the softer side, since making them into soup would be tasty. Maybe I should mark this location and come back another day for fishing so that Een can cook up a banquet. Shiro thought to herself as she couldn't help but swallow her saliva in anticipation. She could almost taste the fish meat. Shaking her head, she tried to focus on the task at hand, but couldn't resist glancing down at the fish. **CK. We're going spear fishing. Shiro clicked her tongue and snapped her finger. Hundreds of Tier 6 magic circles appeared above the ocean as ice spears formed in the air. Piercing into the water, they stabbed deep into the monsters and froze them into ice cubes. While they may be big, their levels were too high. Only around level 600 to 700, so taking care of them was easy for Shiro. Sending one to the void for herself, she transported the others to Yin's part of the rift. Since their powers were connected, Shiro could naturally access Yin's private stash of snacks and food. Placing the fresh fish a little further away so that it wouldn't give the snacks a fishy smell, Shiro looked at the fish in her own inventory. We should have some time to eat before talking to the queen, Shiro thought to herself. Visit lightnovel.com for the best novel reading experience. Landing the jet the moment she saw some land, Shiro didn't hesitate to walk to a clearing and slammed her hand down. A Tier 6 magic circle expanded out as the ground beneath her started to shake. *boom. Using her fire and earth attunements, Shiro created a volcano for it to act as a fire for the giant fish that she was about to cook. Creating a giant metal bowl with her metal attunement, Shiro filled with water and snuck into Yin's private stash to nab a few seasonings and complementary items to throw into the soup. Watching all of this happen, 9 was speechless. In front of him, Shiro was reshaping the land itself in order to cook some fish. Even Iris was speechless. While she may not be able to see what's happening, her mana senses were telling her all the information she needed. The amount of mana that Shiro was using was shocking to say the least. Isn't this already creation? She's shaping the world for her own benefit, Iris thought to herself. Sensing that the two were staring at her, Shiro glanced over. There's plenty of fish for everyone. The soup will be done in a second since my fire is strong. It'll be cooked soon, Shiro called out with a smile. While she may not be able to use nanobots, she could still use her time runes. Summoning Sylvanes, Shiro stabbed it into the mount and activated the runes. A Tier 8 magic circle appeared as Shiro sped up the boiling of the soup so that the flavor of the fish could spread to the rest of the soup. Watching this happen, Iris felt like she was just kicked in the head by a dragon. Due to her sensitivity to mana, she could clearly tell what the hell Shiro had just done. 9. Iris muttered as 9 looked over. She's controlling time right now. She's controlling time to make the soup taste better, Iris said as 9's face palmed and looked up at the sky. Visit lightnovel.com for the best novel reading experience. However, this wasn't going to stop them from eating the fish since they were indeed a little hungry. ####. After finishing their meal, the three of them walked the rest of the way since it was good to digest what they ate. Looking at the castle in the distance, Shiro could already sense a somewhat powerful mana signal from within and knew that it was the queen. The moment she stepped in, she got the notification that she was in another queen's domain and curled her lips into a smile. Iris, how sensitive are you to mana? Are there any adverse effects if you sense a really powerful source? Shiro asked as Iris thought about it for a moment. It'll make me uncomfortable, but nothing too serious, Iris said as Shiro thought about it and nodded her head. In that case, then I'll give you a barrier since your senses might not like what's about to happen. Shiro smiled as she started to walk towards the castle. With each step, her mana erupted out of her body as the area around her started to freeze. Pausing in shock, Iris couldn't believe what she was sensing. Even with the barrier, she could still make out the shape of the aura. It was similar to seeing something through a glass window. Feeling the mana increase with every passing moment, Iris became pale from shock since it was inconceivable for someone to have this much mana hidden within their body. Even if she was to gather everyone in a large city, their mana would still be inferior to Shiro. Imagining what this could mean for her INT stat, Iris shuddered. What will happen if she fired everything toward the earth? Could the planet withstand her might? Thinking about these questions, Iris wondered why she even wanted to obtain the power of creation when she's this strong. However, she felt that it's not the right time to ask just yet, so she made a mental note on her question while following behind Shiro. In the distance, she could see an army of humans and monsters lining up with fear written on their faces. Despite their large numbers, they were fearful of the girl in front of them that walked with a carefree smile. Appearing from a portal, a blue-haired woman with red eyes glared at Shiro. Visit lightnovel.com for the best novel reading experience. Always LVL 800 Puppetry Queen. I didn't expect to get a visit from your esteemed self. Tell me, what brings you to my domain? Always asked as she swallowed her saliva nervously. Feeling the mana radiating from Shiro, Always knew that fighting meant death. There was a small chance, but she hoped that Shiro wouldn't kill them. Plus, she had seen Shiro in action a few times during the events that she participated in. For someone of her caliber, Shiro was akin to a death god. Glancing back, she can see that her subordinates were clutching their weapons nervously, hoping that conflict doesn't occur if possible. Well, I only came to visit since I realized that your subordinates had claimed a few books from one of the guild headquarters. I was hoping I could perhaps visit and borrow the books. Shiro smiled as Always shivered for a moment. May I ask what kind of books are they? We don't keep that many books, Always asked nervously as her mind was crying. Pound U0026 %. U0026 pound % carat U0026 . I burned the books. Holy F *CK, I burned the books. SH *T. Why the hell does she want the books? Always screamed in her mind as she was trying her best to keep her composure while facing the leader of the Machine Legion. Who knows, if she annoys her, Shiro might just let loose her arm and destroy her domain like what she did during the first event. Always could still remember the sight of the area losing all mana. The world seemed to collapse upon itself as a pillar of light descended from the sky. Those that were unfortunately too close to the source were reduced to ash, while those that were lucky had to employ several life-saving skills to survive. She was one of the ones that were lucky and managed to survive through using all of her life-saving skills. The reason why she was now the puppetry queen was partially due to what had happened during the event. More than half of her body was destroyed and her soul was harmed. In order to survive, she had to perform emergency surgery on herself, changing her body permanently into a doll that could be controlled by mana. If she found a way to recover, she would have been fine, but since she couldn't, her had to force herself to change class in order to survive. And now, she was the puppetry queen. I'm not sure about the books I need since your followers took them before I could read them. Just treat it as me visiting your home. Shiro smiled as Aoi furrowed her brows. Perhaps I can go retrieve the bow dash. For more, visit lightnovelpub.com. Sure, perhaps you didn't hear me clearly. It was not a question. It was an order for you to treat me as someone who's visiting, Shiro said while placing her finger on Aoi's lips, stopping her from speaking. Waving her hand, Shiro gestured for Nine and Iris to follow her. Looking at one another, the two forced a smile and walked into the queen's domain while Aoi followed behind him. Your Highness, what should we do? Aoi's subordinate asked as Aoi glanced at them and sighed. Just try to appease her and keep her happy. Hopefully, she'll leave without any conflict. But if a fight does break out, try to run away while I keep her busy for as long as I can. If you don't harm her, I don't think she'll attack you, Aoi said with a deep sigh. Opening a portal, she quickly rushed back to the base while Shiro was taking her time. I need to make the proper preparations, Aoi thought to herself while arriving at the castle. Activating a Tier 6 magic circle, Aoi sent a message to all of the people that were currently working. I want all of the books gathered into a spare no. I want all the books to be gathered at my throne room. This is a life or death situation, especially the books gathered from the last few months. Grab them all. Work like your life depends on it, since it does, Aoi shouted out as she too started to rummage through her own collection with tears threatening to spill out. I should have kept the books, she thought to herself. ####. I'm pretty sure we can just get there now, no? How come we're walking there? Nine asked as they could easily reach the castle in about 10 seconds. I figured I'll give them some time to prepare. I could tell that the queen panicked, so I'll give them a break. Plus, I'm also interested in seeing how she set up her domain. Shiro smiled while looking at the city surrounding the castle. Compared to her memory of Misu's city, Aoi's city was more run down. Most of the structures were still destroyed while the items on display was lackluster. If anything, this place looked more like a giant slums rather than a city. The most up-to-date novels are published on lightnovelpub.com. While Shiro, Iris, and Nine were walking around the city, Aoi was panicking with her subordinates. Is that all the books that we have? Aoi asked as there was barely enough books to cover the table surface. Well, you had burned most of the other ones since they weren't important. Her subordinate coughed as Aoi slumped on a chair. She didn't even want to sit on her throne right now in case Shiro is unhappy about the warmness. Why did you stop me? Because you said they were worthless and it was better to burn it for warmth than to keep it around. Hearing this, Aoi paused before sighing heavily. Start evacuating people. I'll try to keep our guest happy. ####. Arriving at the gates of Aoi's castle, Shiro snapped her finger and opened the large doors using mana. Seeing Aoi wait by the side while the throne was empty, Shiro curled her lips up into a grin and teleported onto the seat. Well then, it seems like you have brought quite the collection of books. Shiro raised an eyebrow while seeing the pile on the table. Unfortunately, most of our books were lost in a small accident. If the book you require is not in this pile, then I hope you can forgive me. Aoi apologized as her heart pounded with anxiety. Why are you so scared? It's not like I'll eat you. I can already tell that your flesh has long lost its elasticity. It's not different from a wooden puppet. If you were a monster, then I would have thought about it, but you're not, so you don't have to worry. Shiro smiled while picking up one of the books. Visit lightnovelpub.com for the best novel reading experience. All right, 9. Iris, you can do whatever you want while I go through these materials. We shouldn't be here for long, Shiro called out as 9 and Iris nodded their heads before looking at Aoi with pity in their eyes. Don't just look at me with pity. If you're going to pity me, then take this death god away from me, Aoi cried out, sensing their gaze. While reading the books, Shiro didn't say anything and Aoi didn't dare to make a sound. All they could hear was the sound of the pages turning. Suddenly, Shiro opened her mouth. Do you desire to become the winner of the new age? Shiro asked without taking her eyes off the book. Answer honestly. I can tell if you're lying, she added. Swallowing her saliva, Aoi sighed. Which queen doesn't? We all have our goals and promises to uphold. She smiled bitterly, knowing full well that she wasn't going to win at all. Not with someone like Shiro around. MN indeed. What is your goal? Mine? Well, mine was supposed to be to revive everyone that died during our own age of demons and gods. Always shrugged. Supposed to be? I'm guessing that's no longer the case. Shiro raised an eyebrow. Shaking her head, Always glanced out of the throne room. Nope, it was what everyone else wanted, but not what I wanted. In my pursuit of this impossibility, I found quite a few people who are rather pleasant to be around. I'll be honest, I barely care about the people of my world since I had no interaction with them. I did nothing for them, and they did nothing for me. To put it coldly, I don't give a crap about them. However, the same can't be said for the people I know now. I understand that to win the age of demons and gods you have to kill all the other queens, so I beg you to let them live. They're just bystanders caught up in all of this. Aoi said as she kneeled in front of Shiro and groveled. Visit lightnovelpub.com for the best novel reading experience. Closing her book, Shiro looked at the shivering Aoi and placed the book down. That's not necessarily the case. There's another way to win the new age without killing the other queens. Why else do you think I've made alliances? Shiro said as she tapped her finger on the throne. I just wanted to see what your desires are, and if you were trustworthy or not. Seeing as how your soul is rather pure, as well as the fact that you were being honest, I won't kill you. Keeping your people safe is an easy task. Aoi, what do you think about an alliance? Give up your spot in the new age, and I'll help you fulfill your desires. Hearing this, Aoi looked up in surprise as she didn't think this was an option. Well, Shiro raised an eyebrow while crossing her legs. Seeing Shiro sit upon her throne, Aoi didn't know what to say. In all her experiences in the new age, there was talk of alliance, but never one that allowed the queen to survive in the end. The iron rule of the new age was about to be broken. Is this true? Aoi asked hesitantly. To her, the best-case scenario would have been for her people to survive. She didn't dare think about her own survival since she knew it was impossible, but that impossibility changed to impossible future. Of course it's true. Now I don't like to repeat myself multiple times. Do you want it or no? Shiro asked as she furrowed her brows. Oh, of course I would. What do I need to do? Aoi panicked as she didn't want to give this opportunity up. Explaining the ritual to Aoi, Shiro performed the contract ceremony. Once it was over, Shiro relaxed on the throne and continued to read her book while Aoi was confused. Wait, that's it? She asked. For such a groundbreaking contract, she thought there was going to be more to it, but it was rather simple. If it was so simple, she figured that other queens or empresses would have done it long ago. It's that simple. Since most empresses are allowed certain information and abilities, I'm guessing his is part of my authority. I'm probably the only one that can make an alliance and keep the queens alive if I were to win the new age. Shiro replied without looking up from her book. Now that Aoi was in her alliance, there wasn't much else she needed to pay attention to here except for her books. The most up-to-date novels are published on lightnovelpub.com. So is there anything you need me to do, or? Aoi asked as she wondered if she needed to prove herself to Shiro in order to enjoy this comfort. There was no free food in the world after all. There was always a benefit for the other party. If not for the fact that she was literally at a dead end, Aoi wouldn't have accepted so readily. Not really. If you can help, then you can help. If you can't, then you don't need to. Misu's in the same situation. There's not much she can do in battle since my enemies are much stronger than her, but she helps out in my city. As for you, you can do the same. Though if you can help me with my current dilemma, then that'll be great. Shiro said as Aoi's eyes sparkled. What's your current problem? She asked, eager to help. For you see, what I desire right now is to find a path to the power of creation. Shiro said as she started to explain her current goal and problems to Aoi. Listening carefully, Aoi understood that Shiro was trying to seek the extremes of creation, which was quite difficult. Plus, there was also the fact that she was leveling a second class while retaining her powers of her first one. Listening to Shiro explain her situation, Aoi wanted to cry again since she didn't know where to start. Everything she said was abnormal. For the power of creation, didn't you already accomplish it? Aoi asked as she had heard Shiro recount her journey with Iris and Nine. I have. Shiro raised an eyebrow. Yes. Did you not create a mountain and a bowl to cook your fish? Summoning something from nothing is already the power of creation, no? In this case, it's mana, but mana is the origin of all life, so it can't be excluded. Aoi replied as Shiro thought about it for a moment. To her, the power of creation was something that contrasted her destruction, something that could stand on equal footing. To offset the destruction, the creation must maintain life despite the corruption. To do so, it would be akin to constantly healing all of the damage that you take. Follow current novels on lightnovelpub.com. While thinking about this, Shiro could tell that Aoi still had something on her mind. You can speak about what you think. Don't worry about offending me, Shiro reminded. If I offend you, I die. Aoi cried out in her mind as she tried to think about how she was going to phrase this. Have you thought about what kind of creation do you want? You said you want something as powerful as destruction, right? Thinking about the end result of destruction is easy. Nothingness. At the end of destruction is nothing. Everything has been destroyed. But what kind of creation are you looking for? The creation of a new life? New objects? New planet? If you can figure out a clear image of the creation that you want, then perhaps your path might be clearer. You're looking for something to do with healing right now, but your image of creation is still blurry. Becoming a healer is just a temporary solution that you've thought about for now, Aoi said as Shiro stayed silent and contemplated about her image of creation. What is creation? Creation is to recover no matter how much destruction is caused. It's converting mana into anything and everything. Souls, physical bodies, everything. No matter how much destruction is caused, creation can recover no matter what happens. When Chaos said that there was an aspect of creation already in my nanobots, it fits the description. While it was still lacking, it could making anything and everything I wanted with a slight problem of maintaining their properties of nanobots. If I was to create a physical body, it would not be the same. It couldn't grow, nor could it be reinforced through training. Only I could improve them, or anyone with control over nanobots, Shiro thought to herself. Tapping her finger on the chair, Shiro thought about it deeply and realized that the answer to her questions lie in the source codes that act as the soul of people. The source code contains the information to their physical composition, their mental composition, their past incarnations, and their abilities. Once a being becomes a demigod or god, they obtain a certain amount of control of their source code. By adjusting certain parameters, conscious or unconsciously, a god is able to express power beyond that or mortal men. They are also able to disable their aging factor, making it so that they never die from old age. That's why the code, or rather, the core of a god is important. Once an outsider discovers your source code or core, they are able to directly kill you. The source code is the origin of everything and possibly even mana. Perhaps, creation is the ability to tap into the source code of everything and anything. Transform the entire world into a code that you can manipulate. You can choose how many beings with a sentient code exist, as well as the materials present in the world. While nanobots may be similar, it lacks the ability to tap into the source code. Only with error was I able to obtain this power. Nanobots emulate the effects after manipulating the source code. In a nutshell, it skips that step. But with error, she is able to tap into the code and make it so that nanobots weren't just simulating the results. If anything, it's her own mind that restricts the power of her nanobots. While they're called nanobots, their abilities have already transcended their intended design. This was no longer just nanobots anymore. With both error and nanobots, she has already began to simulate the effects of the firstborn of creation, the ability to control and govern all. Follow current novels on lightnovelpub.com. Looking down at her hand, Shiro narrowed her eyes as red circuits appeared on her arm. Slowly traveling up her body, she allowed it to access her right eye. The side of her right eye started to change as she could see her own physical composition. Looking at Aoi, she could see her injured code and its desperate attempts to keep the physical body intact. Closing her eyes, Shiro activated a Tier 8 magic circle that slowly crumbled away before slowly reassembling itself. However, this time, it threatened to form a 9th layer. Tier 9 magic circle, a realm above the gods. However, her powers were still lacking. Shattering to pieces, the magic failed as Shiro opened her eyes. Clenching her fist, Shiro smiled as her goal became clear. Her understanding of what must be done has improved, and she understands a clear path to obtain the power of creation. For her to obtain the power of creation, she must harness error to his full capabilities. As she is the firstborn of destruction, only a virus like error can help her transcend her own design. Only with error can she glitch the system and simultaneously become the firstborn of destruction and the firstborn of creation. Aoi, thanks for your answer. My progress has improved. Shiro smiled as Aoi nodded her head. However, she noticed something strange with Shiro's name tag. From medic level 1, it started to change. Little by little, her class was changed into something else. New novel chapters are published on lightnovelpub.com. Shiro LVL 250 Seeker of Creation. Well then, this trip has been more beneficial than I had expected. What I need to do now is to increase my control and get used to working with the source code, Shiro said as her eyes slowly scanned Aoi. Feeling a shiver down her spine, Aoi slowly backed away. Why are you backing away? I'm merely thinking about a way to help you out. Shiro curled her lips into a grin. Then why are you looking at me like I'm a piece of meat on a chopping block? Aoi asked as she could feel her instincts telling her to run. The way Shiro looked at her was not normal. It was blatant lust for knowledge and experimentation. Understanding that Aoi could guess what she wants to do, Shiro laughed and tapped her finger. Suddenly, ice chains shot out of the ground and restrained Aoi while the doors of the throne room slammed shut. Don't go shouting so loud now. I wouldn't want your followers to see you in an embarrassing state after all. Shiro narrowed her eyes while Aoi shivered. What kind of embarrassing state? She asked, hoping that Shiro would give her an answer to calm her nerves. Well, you'll find out. Shiro chuckled softly as there was a dangerous light in her eyes. Suddenly, in the realm of gods, Aphrodite sat up in surprise. Her ears twitched before narrowing her eyes seductively. Oh my, this is quite the surprise. Seems like the maiden's curiosity has taken over her rationality. She was always so serious, but it seems like she's thrown caution into the wind. Aphrodite muttered while licking her lips. Beneath her, Hermes was chained to the bed with both a pained and pleasured expression. Finishing Hermes off, Aphrodite got off the bed and waved her hand. A set of clothes appeared on her body as her eyes was filled with interest. I can't miss this show. She grinned while Athena appeared before her with a dark expression. Where's Hermes? Athena asked as Aphrodite chuckled and glanced towards the room behind her. He's cleaning himself, Rai. Ow, ow, wow. Couted, stop grabbing my ear. Aphrodite was cut off as Athena dragged her away. Stop King, all the gods in our alliance. Athena clicked her tongue while Aphrodite pouted before jumping on Athena's back. Why are you jealous? Aphrodite grinned and bit Athena on the ear. Clang. A ray of light erupted from Athena's body and suspended Aphrodite in midair. Fine, I'll stop for now. Only because there's something interesting to see. Aphrodite smiled as Athena raised an eyebrow. Which mortal has caught your eye now? Athena asked as it was probably someone with a sex drive as strong as Aphrodite's. It's Shiro. I don't know what exactly happened, but she seemed to have let loose. Her restrictions are off, and she's going to do something quite interesting. Aphrodite smiled as Athena choked on her saliva. Out of everyone she knew, she didn't expect Shiro to go at it while the second half of the new age was about to begin. Best part is, she's doing it with someone she just met for a day. The light in her eyes remind me of my earlier days when I couldn't restrain myself. Aphrodite said as her body started to squirm within the binding. Twisting her face with disgust, Athena could tell that Aphrodite was enjoying this a little too much. Plus, when Aphrodite was enjoying herself, her divinity would radiate a special aura that forces the same lust upon nearby beings. Gods were no exception. Feeling her face become hot, Athena furrowed her brows and stomped her foot down. A cage appeared around Aphrodite as the aura was cut off for now. I'm not too into pet play, but I'll do it just for you. Aphrodite joked as traced her body with her finger. Ignoring what was happening behind her, Athena couldn't help but also feel a little curious about what Shiro was going to do. Looking around her, she made sure that no one could see her before opening a portal to her own domain. I'm just observing Shiro to make sure she's okay. It's nothing immoral. Athena thought to herself as she coughed and summoned the system display to show what Shiro was doing right now. Hearing the sudden moan, Athena coughed heavily as she shielded her eyes but kept a small gap so that she could keep watching. Suddenly, she realized that Aphrodite was staring at her with a smug smile on her face. What? Athena stammered as she realized that her bindings on Aphrodite's cage started to loosen and the aura flowed out. My. Seems like after all my years of trying, the aura has finally started to break your barrier, dear Athena. The goddess immune to love is starting to feel lust. Aphrodite grinned as she licked her lips, similar to a beast looking at her prey. Shivering at Aphrodite's gaze, Athena banished Aphrodite from her domain and tried to calm herself while also peeking at what Shiro was doing. However, she didn't notice that Aphrodite had created an avatar to take her place, and she was currently hiding in Athena's realm. Narrowing her eyes, Aphrodite released her aura and jumped on Athena from behind. Widening her eyes in shock, Athena could feel Aphrodite's body press on her. ###. Ignorant at what was happening in the realm of gods, Shiro had strapped Aoi to an ice table and started to investigate her body. Stripping off Aoi's clothes, Shiro tapped and prodded Aoi's body ranging from the arms, legs to the neck and chest. Understanding that all of the muscles and bones have been solidified into a material worthy to be used in a puppet, Shiro leaned towards Aoi's face and stared at her. Blushing heavily, Aoi wanted to cry. "Can I put my clothes on again? It's chilly," Aoi asked as Shiro shook her head. "Not yet. Despite your body being ridged, your head is still rather soft. If it's solidified as well, you would find it hard to observe your surroundings. Though from what I can tell, it seems like the wound was to your lower body and you were forced to heal from the waist down. The rest of your body was affected by the solidification while your head was spared," Shiro muttered while running her finger down Aoi's body. Shivering at Shiro's touch, Aoi opened her mouth. "Are you doing this on purpose? Why else are you touching my sensitive parts?" Aoi asked while trying to move her body in a way that covered as much of her body as possible. "Perhaps. I am rather curious. Seeing you squirm does make me feel quite good." Shiro smiled as her eyes flickered with a sadistic light. All she had ever done was hold hands, so she was quite curious as to what was after that. She had seen sexual acts before, both in person and on video earlier in the year, but had never done anything personally. Therefore, she wanted to see how sensitive the body was. Perhaps she could even dial it up a notch by tampering with the source code. Closing one of her eyes, red circuits appeared on her arm as Shiro found Aoi's source code. Snapping her finger, a strand of the circuits started to thread its way to Aoi's source code. Accidentally moaning from the feeling, Aoi blushed as Shiro curled her lips into a grin. "Seems like you're quite sensitive in this area." She raised an eyebrow while controlling the red circuits. However, just as she was about to continue, Shiro realized what she was doing and coughed. Letting go of Aoi's body, Shiro waved her hand and created some clothes again for Aoi. "All right, enough with the jokes. I'll focus on healing your body now," Shiro said as she closed her eyes. Focusing on Aoi's source code, Shiro could read the history of what happened to her body. Similar to looking back at internet history, she could see the transformation of Aoi's body. To fix her again, I'll need to revert the changes. Trying to reconstruct her body would be too difficult for now. The best case scenario would be to undo what she's done, Shiro thought to herself. Thankfully, she had studied the concept of time with Chronos, so she had a few ideas, but it was just a case of trying to put it into practice. While Shiro was thinking of ways to help Aoi's body, Aoi laid on the ice bed with a complicated expression. Despite what just happened, she had to admit that there was a part of her that liked it. "What am I thinking about?" Aoi shook her head before peeking at Shiro. Biting her lips, she tried to dismiss the bad thoughts from her head, but found it impossible. Did I just become an M for her? Aoi wanted to cry but found her body getting hot. At first she thought it was her lust overcoming her, but that was not the case. Feeling warmth wash over her body, she realized that her sensation over her body slowly returned. While Aoi was enjoying the feeling of touch returning to her body, Shiro furrowed her brows. Editing Aoi's source code, Shiro could tell that the changes were only temporary. They lasted for a short time and would disappear unless she was to edit them again. Even with her current mastery over time, the flow would fix itself forcefully unless she was to overwrite her current state and set it as a future. That's a bit too risky right now. If I was to force it, Aoi may instantly die due to the fracture in the flow of time, Shiro thought to herself as she retracted the red circuits and pulled out a laptop from her inventory. Sitting down by the throne, Shiro huddled herself into a ball with the laptop on her knees and started to type up a document for her findings. Since she had sealed her divinity away for now, she no longer had access to her database. Therefore, there was a chance she may forget this, so she wanted to keep a note of it. You can unlock yourself pretty easily. The ice has lost its powers, so it's just normal ice. Also, the sensation should wear off in about 2 hours or so. I'm not able to completely change you back yet, so don't get too happy. Though this has given me more of an idea on how I should proceed. In order to fully master the art of creation, I need to improve my mastery over time so that I can rewrite both the past, present, and future. Once I succeed in that, I'll be able to set your body back to normal, Shiro explained without looking towards Aoi. To make more progress, we'll need to do this daily, Shiro said as Aoi shivered. Shiro figured that Aoi was probably cold, but the glimmer in her eyes didn't feel right. Furrowing her brows, she could feel goosebumps on her skin but didn't know the source. All right, is there anything else you need my help with? Aoi asked as she adjusted her mental state. Nothing else for now. I just need to consolidate the knowledge I've obtained and improve. I've pretty much figured out how I can level up now, Shiro said, pointing at the stats above her head. Despite her level now being 250, she didn't gain any stat increases, which makes sense to her since she already reached the limit of level 1000. Any strength she gains now has to be reliant on her divinity and the amount of belief her followers give her. Ah, I see. Do you need me to prepare a room for you? Aoi asked as she broke off the ice chains restraining her. Now you don't have to. Just go about your work. I can sleep here. Oh, also, if you can you call Iris and Nine back? I want to have a quick word with them. Shiro said as Aoi nodded and left the room. After a short while, both Iris and Nine peeked through the door and saw Shiro typing on her laptop. For more, visit lightnovelpub.com. Come in, Shiro called out as the two stood in front of her. I figured out where to go from here, so there's not much need for me to go out. Is there anything you need to do, or are you fine with staying here for a while? Shiro asked. Looking at Iris, Nine shook his head. We don't have anything to do for now in short term, but eventually, we'll need to go back. There's a debt to be settled, and it'll have to wait until we're stronger. Nine shrugged as Shiro nodded her head. Well, if you want to be stronger, I can go around killing monsters with you for now. That should help you get EXP. As for actual experience, I'll make a time chamber for you. It'll dilute the time so that time passes faster in the room, and it'll give you sufficient time to train. Shiro offered as Nine paused in surprise. However, remembering that she used time magic to help her make the food taste better, he understood that with her control of magic and time, this was probably an easy task for her. In that case, then I'll be troubling you. Nine smiled as Shiro nodded. It's fine. There's no trouble. Oh, speaking of which, Iris, if you don't mind, can I study your physique for a bit? I'm compiling some data right now, so a unique case like yours will be quite helpful, Shiro said as Iris nodded her head. Of course. Oh, and Nine, you'll have to step out for a bit. I'll call you back in once I'm done, Shiro said, placing her laptop down. Raising an eyebrow, Nine nodded his head and watched as Iris gave him a small wave. He didn't know why, but it felt like he was delivering her to a beast. I'm probably overthinking things, Nine thought to himself, stepping out of the room. He closed the door and decided to guard it in case anyone wanted to disturb Shiro and Iris. Noticing this, Shiro waved her hand and blocked off the noise from the inside for now. Follow current novels on lightnovelpub.com. I'll seal the mana in this room for now, so that you can undo your bandages if you don't mind. Nodding her head, Iris reached towards her bandage and removed it from her face. Blinking her eyes in surprise, Shiro was shocked to see corruption near her eyes. The darkness seemed to flicker with weird glitches and numbers. Is there something wrong? Iris asked as she blinked her eyes. Within the darkness that tries to spread out its influence, a pair of fluorescent pink eyes stared back at Shiro. How do I explain this? What does your eyes look like to you normally? Shiro asked, conjuring a piece of ice to act as a mirror. A strange question, but except for the unusual glow in my eyes and some runic marks around the edges due to the seal, there's nothing else that's wrong with them. Iris replied, looking at herself in the mirror. Hearing this, Shiro furrowed her brows. So it's just me that can see it then. That's a little unsettling. Can you lay down on this table? I'll do a quick checkup on you, Shiro asked as Iris nodded. Laying down on the ice table, Shiro approached her and closed her eyes. Red circuits appeared on her arm as Shiro tried to infiltrate Iris's body only for the corruption to spread through her body and lash out at Shiro. Slapping Shiro's arm away, the corruption retreated, leaving Shiro surprised as this had never happened before. We'll leave it here for now. I'll call on you in the future once I made some progress, Shiro said as Iris looked at her with a confused stare before nodding. Putting on her bandages once more, Shiro watched as the corruption get sealed away and furrowed her brows. Follow new episodes on the lightnovelpub.com platform. Instructing Iris to rest for now, Shiro sat on the throne in a fetal position and contemplated what she had learnt. The powers around Iris' eyes are similar to Error. The energy it radiates reminds me of when I first came into contact with him. Perhaps once Error recovers enough to talk, I'll be able to get some answers. For now, I'll just develop my abilities over time, Shiro muttered, closing her eyes so that she could get some sleep. Even though she's been suppressing it all day, Shiro could feel her nerves tensing the longer she stayed alone. Her mind wondered if the city was safe, but knew it was just her anxiety messing with her. Taking deep breaths to try calm herself, Shiro wanted to hasten her recovery, which was another reason for her departure. If she stayed in Asharia, she didn't know if she could stop herself from looking for Nantion to calm her nerves. If she kept doing that, she'll never get herself out of this shell. Holding her knees tightly, Shiro ignored her worries and tried to sleep. ###. Laying in bed, Aphrodite smiled happily while checking up on what Shiro had done. Seeing that she had racked up quite a lot of affection points on the meter with Aoi, she couldn't help but raise her eyebrow. Oh my, such talent. In one encounter, and she's already made such progress. She's even better than me. Aphrodite muttered while glancing behind her to see the blushing and nude Athena putting her clothes back on. So, how did you enjoy it? You've resisted me for so long. How does it feel to let loose? Aphrodite asked as she eyed Athena's body. Saying nothing, Athena tried to suppress her blush as a cage appeared around Aphrodite once more, and this time she was thrown out for good. Dismissing her aura that was clearly one that was meant to make one hot and bothered, Athena glanced back at the screen and noticed something in the corner. Immediately, her blush disappeared as she donned her armor and forcefully created an avatar. Descending to the mortal realm, Athena glared coldly at the being in front of her. What are you doing, Odin? This place is not within your realm of influence. I sensed an interesting clash in power for a split moment, though it may just be me getting dull. A young man smiled while glancing at Athena out of his one visible eye. The other was covered by a runic eye patch. Glaring at Odin, who floated in front of her, Athena started to release her aura, causing him to chuckle. There's no need to get violent now, do we? Just think of it as me visiting someone of interesting. Though I did see a familiar face. Odin narrowed his eyes, causing Athena to frown in displeasure. Sure, it is not someone you can just mess with. There's more at stake than you realize. Oh, I certainly know the stakes. Perhaps a little more than you. Perhaps a little less. What I will say that is it's rather interesting to see her level degrade to 250. A rather curious anomaly. Odin laughed as he transformed into a wisp of energy, leaving nothing but a single sentence behind. I'll take my leave for now, Athena, and give Aphrodite my congratulations. Seems like she's finally got her hands on you. Hearing this, Athena clicked her tongue in annoyance. Making sure that he wasn't around, she gave her arm a sniff to see if she could still smell Aphrodite's scent. Realizing that there was a small scent, Athena frowned and left the area. She wanted to cleanse this smell from her body. ####. Waking up early in the morning, Shiro glared at the ceiling with a frown. She didn't exactly get the best sleep, so she felt groggy right now. URG. Groaning softly, Shiro adjusted her position on the seat and glanced out of the window. Seeing that it was still early before sunrise, she activated error and glanced at her arm. There's still a lot to be known in terms of editing the source code. Right now, I'm able to edit all I want but lack the powers to save the changes and make them permanent. If I can find that out, all that's left is to remember the basic codes that are present in all life. If I get my hands on that, I obtain the basic foundations to life through the source code. Shiro muttered before deactivating error, since she can't see much of her own source code unless she took control of his body. For more, visit lightnovelpub.com. Thinking about it for a moment, she also realized that she could probably see the foundations of the source code if she observes a pregnant woman, since there will be a second code in their body, one that belonged to the child. If I can see that, I can probably sort out any birth defects that might appear. Thinking about the possibilities, it reinforced Shiro's beliefs that the source code is her ticket to a creation divinity. Shaking her head, she hopped off the throne and made her way out of the castle. If she wanted to experiment with the source code, she needed more test subjects, and the best place to look for that is the outside world. Trees, grass, dirt, monsters, animals, they all have a code. I just need to study them in detail. Shiro smiled as she paused in realization. Whenever she used her nature attunement to fix the land they destroy, it does those trees have their own code? Raising an eyebrow, Shiro waved her hand and created a tree in front of her. Closing her right eye, she activated error and had it augment her sight so that she could see the source code. As she opened her eyes, she blinked in surprise. Rather than making something out of nothing, the tree seemed to take a small portion of her own code before expanding upon that for the code for its own existence. Furrowing her brows, Shiro wasn't quite sure as to why a piece of her own code was taken for this. But considering the fact that she was technically the twin to the firstborn of creation, it made sense that a part of her code might be similar. The process may be different when other people do it, so it was too soon for her to say anything. Who knows? She might be wrong, and everyone uses a part of their code to create something in their surroundings. Ice, fire, metal, and so on. For more, visit lightnovelpub.com. Everything originates from one's mana, so there will definitely be a link. Shaking her head, Shiro started to look at the trees that had already been here without any interference. Examining the code, Shiro noted down the slight differences and similarities it has with the code she has found in people's bodies. Once she had finished, she glanced back at the castle and wondered what she should do with Nine and Iris. Iris' problem can't be solved in short time since she needed to improve her control. Once Era recovers, she'll be able to make more progress. As for Nine, he has mentioned that he was going to take revenge in the future. Seems like I can only experiment with Aoi for now. Perhaps I might look for a few other queens before the second half arrives. Shiro muttered as Aoi suddenly felt a chill down her spine. ####. Teleporting away, Odin slowly walked to his domain as a bolt of lightning suddenly struck near him. Father, the mortals are starting to call out to the gods. The barrier is weakening, and even though the Greek pantheon have the high ground right now, their foundation is fragile after their civil war. If we want to become the main pantheon, we'll have to make some preparations before the second half arrives. A young man said as Odin furrowed his brows. Don't be too hasty, Thor. There's been a small change to our plans. The clash of power I found the source. She's different, but her aura bears resemblance to the firstborn of destruction. Well, a small trace of it. She definitely has a connection, but the aura is too weak to be used as a link. It's only bigger than most people, but still a little weaker to most fallen. If not for my eye, I would have dismissed her, but there's a nagging feeling in my heart. Odin warned as Thor paused in surprise. We are to just watch for now. There are many secrets around that woman. Depending on what we do, she might become our doom. After all, she is already known as the God Slayer. Odin chuckled before disappearing. Hearing the title of God Slayer, Thor paused in shock and shivered. He could still remember what happened last time there was someone with this title. The number of gods that died by his hands was uncountable. He had crushed pantheons all by himself. If they underestimate Shiro, it might be their pantheon that get eradicated next. Updated from lightnovelpub.com. Don't even think about it, Loki. This is no longer something that we can interfere with. Thor called out. Suddenly, a blue-haired woman appeared from the shadows. She had a cheeky smile on her face as her eyes seemed to flicker with a myriad of lights. Well, even I know that much, brother. The only thing I'm thinking about is how much I can mess around without spoiling the stage for the grand play. Loki chuckled as she skipped from shadow to shadow. You know I'm a lover for the theatrical. A mysterious god slayer, anomalies appearing in the realm of gods, fallen becoming stronger, civil strife, and a new age where the participants are multitudes stronger than what they should be. I feel that more will ascend from this world to take the title of gods. Surely you know that such a play cannot be missed. Loki giggled as she snuck into Thor's shadow only for lightning to strike her and force her out. TCH stingy. Loki pouted while Thor ignored her. Don't mess around too much. You can watch the play, but once the audience messes around with the script, there will naturally be people who will want to remove you. Thor warned as Loki smiled. Of course I understand. Brother, as much as I enjoy messing around with scripts, that's only because they're so darn awful. They bore me, so I must bring some life to the script. This one, however, seems like it will keep me entertained. I will control myself as I am capable of that much. Though the same cannot be said for a few others. Loki said as her smile disappeared. Appearing in front of Thor, Loki was serious. There was a mortal that somehow obtained cards that could call upon the power of gods. And these cases are popping up more often. While I haven't given my blessing yet, there have been a few who had tried to call upon my name. Except for a few exceptional mortals, this shouldn't be possible. However, the ones that called upon me are dull. They can't even be called talented. Someone is spreading these cards in hopes that more will call upon the gods. No one likes a third party messing with the script. Be careful when you enter the mortal world. Loki warned as Thor nodded his head. If Loki was this serious, then he knew that he had to be on his guard. I'll keep that in mind. Thor smiled and patted Loki's shoulder before disappearing in a flash of lightning. Watching her brother leave, Loki shook her head and summoned a coin. Flipping it, the crest of Shiro appeared on one side as she twirled it in her fingers. The actors are in place, the props are ready, and the stage is set. All that awaits is the silence of anticipation before the curtain rises. After another round of experimenting with Aoi, Shiro was a little taken aback by her reaction considering how much she was panting. She figured that it was probably Aoi feeling cold from her ice, but queens should have a pretty high resistance. Maybe she's not used to feeling anything through her body since she's turned herself into a puppet. The sensation of touch might be a little sensitive for her right now. Shiro thought to herself while letting Aoi go. Seeing some disappointment in Aoi's eyes, Shiro shook her head since it'll take a while for her to be able to fix her complete. Setting aside Aoi's recovery, Shiro had a few plans today. She wanted to find more queens and recruit them into her alliance. That way they don't need to die for no reason. Plus, if their goal is something she could accomplish, she'll grant them that wish. Leaving the throne room, Shiro looked for Nine and Iris. Seeing the two of them investigate the star chart that Iris had obtained from the guild headquarters, Shiro knocked on the wall to get their attention. "Oh, sorry, didn't see you there." Nine waved as Shiro nodded her head. "That's fine. We'll be setting off soon. I want to make alliances with more queens in the span of 2 days. If you two want to join, then it'll be good for you since you'll see more of the world. Who knows, you might find something that interests you." Shiro smiled as Nine thought about it for a moment before nodding his head. "If you don't mind me tagging along, then I'll be in your care." He smiled as Iris also nodded her head. "I'm in. Don't worry, I won't be messing around with the jet for you this time. I'll give you a small break." Shiro chuckled as the two of them packed up and prepared to leave. Leaving the castle, Shiro brought out a car from the rift. Sitting in the driver's seat, Shiro forgot that she was a little too short to see the road clearly. Giving herself a little boost on the seat, she adjusted her posture so that it felt comfortable. While doing this, Nine and Iris watched with concern but shrugged it off. Getting into the car, the three of them went for a small road trip as Shiro booted up the Argus satellite system. Updated from lightnovelpub.com, scanning the areas near them, Shiro narrowed her eyes, seeing the signals that represented a queen's influence. "Why is it so small?" Shiro muttered as Nine perked his ears up in curiosity. "What's small?" "The queen's domain. At this stage, each queen should have a relatively large domain, but most of them aren't even 2 cities big. They've shrank back down to their initial size at the start of the new age," Shiro explained with a frown. Flicking her fingers, she had the car project the map and switch to live cam. Looking at the cities, Shiro could see several statues in the process of being built. Furrowing her brows, she zoomed in on the statues. There were surprisingly a few barriers, but thanks to Argus' blessing, those barriers couldn't hold her back for long, and soon, the statues were displayed in full detail. Widening her eyes, Shiro could tell that a few of the statues represented gods that she knew, and their crests were etched to the surface. While it was not the real crest, they would pulse with slight traces of golden energy that Shiro was all too familiar with. "The gods are already reaching out with their grubby hands," Shiro muttered with a frown. "Gods? How do you know it's the gods?" Nine asked curiously. "Well, as you figured, I'm not an average person. My level is not 250. I can kill beings that are level 1000, and I can make a queen fear for her life. I'm a god as well, but I've sealed my divinity away for the time being in pursuit of the divinity of creation. Hence why my level is jumping up whenever I make a big breakthrough. That's because I've already reached the max." Shiro smiled as she explained to Nine about her identity. Naturally, Nine had his suspicions, but he didn't think it was like this. Level 1000 god, empress, and someone that could make queens cower in fear. It was no wonder that Aoi was shivering in her boots in front of Shiro, since anyone would when their opponent was someone who reached the mortal limit and became a god. Visit lightnovelpub.com for the best novel reading experience. "So what do you think now?" Shiro chuckled as Nine scratched his head. "Honestly, overwhelmed. If the two of us annoyed you earlier, then please spare us." He shrugged with a forced smile. While he and Iris have only been with Shiro for 2 days, she seemed very relaxed and down-to-earth with her attitude. Of course, if someone annoys her, then they're in for a treat, but as long as the two of them are not idiots, Shiro will be nice to them. PFT, don't be so nervous, I'm not going to bite. I'll tell you something else as well. Each garden or world will produce a queen to participate in the new age. For me, I'm the queen for this world. One of my friends did also become a queen, which was a small anomaly, but overall not too serious. In other words, I'm on your side / I'm on this world's side. Shiro reassured while driving towards one of the closer settlements that had already prepared a statue for a god. However, it seems like this queen is rather unfriendly. Shiro narrowed her eyes. Sticking her hand out of the window, she snapped her finger, and a Tier 7 magic circle appeared around the car. Projecting a barrier, 9 orbs of purple energy suddenly appeared as it crashed against the barrier. Setting the car on autopilot for now, Shiro flipped herself onto the roof of the car. "You two stay seated. You're not high enough level yet, so it's probably best for you to observe for now," Shiro said as Iris and Nine nodded their heads. Stretching her body, Shiro grinned as she snapped her finger. Suddenly, an array of Tier 7 magic circles appeared around her. Each one produced an ice bullet that started to flicker with lightning. Tier 6 magic circles appeared in front of the ice bullets as they were meant to accelerate them towards the target. Asterisk bang 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 bang. releasing waves upon waves of ice bullets. Shiro watched them crash into a barrier before being flipped and sent back at her. Oh, well, this is a little surprising. Perhaps getting the blessing of a god allowed her enough power to deflect my attack, Shiro muttered before snapping her finger. All of the bullets exploded into a shower of snow, instantly turning the battlefield into a blizzard that was useful for her, since she could control everything in this domain. Are you going to keep hiding? It'll be a real shame if I slaughter you without knowing who you are. If I did, I could at least give you a grave, Shiro shouted out as her mana flared outward. New novel chapters are published on lightnovelpub.com. Hearing no response, Shiro glanced above her and saw a Tier 6 magic circle slowly morph to a Tier 7 one. A spear of purple energy shot towards her as she closed her right eye. Red circuits appeared on her arm as she opened her eye and glared at the spear. Snapping her finger, a single streak light shot up to the spear and dismantled it in a single moment. Dismissing the circuits, Shiro had already locked onto the caster's energy in the distance. Might as well make it flashy. Shiro grinned as she jumped forward, slamming her hand down. A tsunami of ice appeared beneath her as it crashed towards the settlement in the distance. Within the ice tsunami, thousands of armored warriors could be seen as they were awaiting deployment. I'll give you one more chance to come out before I end you for good, Shiro warned as she clasped her hands together. A Tier 7 magic circle appeared around the city and sealed off their exit. All teleportation circles were disabled, and they were nothing but sitting ducks ready to be hunted. Of course, Shiro didn't want to have to kill the residents if possible, but that did not include the queen. If she was attacked, she'll fight back. Hearing no response once more, Shiro frowned and glared at the queen through the walls. Suddenly, she noticed something wrong as everyone in the city almost seemed robotic. The queen didn't have any reactions to what she said except to attack anything near her. Furrowing her brows, Shiro activated error and glanced at her source code from afar using analysis to help her. The moment she did, Shiro felt a wave of anger wash over her. Poochie. One could see a vein threatening to burst on her forehead as Shiro dismissed the ice tsunami. After looking at the queen's code, Shiro could tell that most of it had been taken over, but a certain god, or rather, gods. There was 3 god-like presences within her body, and her main conscience had long disappeared. Using her as a vessel, the 3 gods did the same to every other inhabitant in the place. To put it plainly, they killed everyone in this city. Feeling anger boil in her heart, Shiro gave them all a death sentence.